In the headlines, no NATO, no Crimea. U.S. President Donald Trump is ruling out any return of Crimea to Ukraine and that Kiev will not be allowed into NATO. Trump claims President Volodymyr Zelensky could end the war with Russia almost immediately, but only if he accepts those conditions. The remarks come ahead of Zelensky's meeting with Trump and European leaders at the White House just days after Trump's talks with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. In India, seafood exporters are feeling the bite of the new U.S. tariffs. A 50% duty is hitting a multi-billion-dollar trade. Industry leaders warn it could drive buyers away and leave shipments stranded. Bolivia's presidential election is headed to a runoff, with Senator Rodrigo Paz Pereira and former President George Quiroga advancing, ending nearly 2 decades of ruling party dominance. Raging wildfires continue to tear through southern Europe. In Spain, flames have scorched Galicia's forest and forced evacuations. And in Türkiye, a massive blaze have blanketed the sky with smoke as crews race to contain the inferno. In Pakistan, monsoon floods have killed hundreds of people. Entire villages in one province have been swept away, and authorities warn the death toll could rise with more heavy rains expected. For the first time, Madagascar is leading Southern Africa's regional bloc. President Andry Rajoelina has taken the gavel as chair of the Southern African Development Community, opening the group's 45th summit in Antananarivo. And for our sports news, in Chengdu, China, the 2025 World Games have come to a close. 10 days of competition ended with a spectacular closing ceremony, celebrating record-breaking performances and flag handover and cultural showcases of local flair. I'm Angel Pastor. Newsline World starts now. First in our news, European leaders and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky are heading to Washington for high-stakes talks with U.S. President Donald Trump, a meeting set to define the next phase after the Putin-Trump talks. Franco Baranda for the details.
After U.S. President Donald Trump's talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, Ukraine will take center stage in Washington. President Zelensky will meet Trump at the White House, joined by key European leaders. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen confirmed the visit, saying she will join Zelensky and other leaders at the White House on Monday at his request. Von der Leyen stressed that territorial decisions must be made by Ukraine and never without Ukraine at the table. She vowed Europe's continued support until a just and lasting peace is achieved, and signaled a possible 19th package of sanctions on Russia in early September. The European Commission President also welcomed Trump's openness to explore security guarantees similar to NATO's Article 5, noting that a coalition of the willing, including the EU, is ready to play its part. Article 5 states that an armed attack against one or more of the members shall be considered an attack against all members. The meeting will include German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Finnish President Alexander Stubb, and NATO Chief Mark Rutte, all set to join Zelensky in Washington. The talks come just days after Trump's 3-hour meeting with Russia President Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, a meeting that ended without a breakthrough, leaving Ukraine's future still hanging. For God and my beloved Philippines, Franco Baranda, SMNI News.
U.S. President Donald Trump says Ukraine could end the war with Russia almost immediately, but reclaiming Crimea or joining NATO are off the table. Ahead of the White House talks with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and the European leaders, Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform, quote, President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. Remember how it started. No getting back Obama given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired, and no going into NATO by Ukraine. Some things never change. End of quote. Just days earlier, White House envoy Steve Witkoff said both the US and Russia agreed on the need for what he called robust security guarantees for Ukraine. Wildfires continue to wreak havoc across Spain, where flames have already ravaged vast fires or forests and forced evacuations. And in Türkiye, another fast-moving blaze is putting lives and communities at risk, prompting a massive firefighting response. Sara Santos for this report.
In Europe, massive wildfires continue to rage across northwest Spain, devastating forests in Galicia and threatening nearby towns. Footage from Laza on Sunday shows firefighters battling towering flames as thick smoke blankets the region. Emergency crews work to clear dry vegetation in hopes of containing the blaze. Authorities have placed 32 towns on high alert, urging residents to stay indoors as scorching heat and dry winds fuel the fire spread. Level 2 emergency measures remain in place in several municipalities. The crisis has also disrupted major transport routes. The A52 motorway and the Madrid-Galicia high-speed rail line were both shut down, stranding thousands of passengers. More than 1,200 military personnel are assisting in firefighting operations. Spain has also called in international help, France dispatching 2 water-dropping aircraft, while the European Union activated its emergency mechanism, sending additional planes to Spain, Greece and Portugal. A dramatic video released by Spain's Ministry of Defense captures the scale of the Jarilla fire in Extremadura, where flames have already consumed 11,000 hectares of farmland and forest. Entire communities, including Gargantilla, have been forced to evacuate as the blaze threatens to spread into neighboring Castilla y León. Spain is facing one of its worst wildfire seasons in recent years. Since January, 7 people have been killed and more than 150,000 hectares destroyed by fires. Officials warn the situation remains critical. And in Türkiye, hundreds of firefighters are battling a fast-moving wildfire in Çanakkale province. Flames forced the evacuation of several villages and the temporary closure of the Dardanelles Strait to ship traffic, as helicopters and planes carried out water drops. Authorities say shifting winds are complicating efforts, but containment lines are being reinforced to protect residential areas. Reporting, Sara Santos, SMNI News.
In Pakistan, relentless monsoon rains have turned deadly. Entire villages in Khyber, Pakhtunkhwa have been wiped out and hundreds of lives lost. Survivors describe a catastrophe unlike anything they've ever seen as floodwaters continue to rise and more rain is on the way. Verhil Parba has the latest.
Entire villages have been left in ruins. Homes lie flattened or partially collapsed, while survivors can be seen crossing fast-moving waters on improvised wooden planks. Local witnesses described the scale of destruction as unlike anything they have ever seen.
उधर में मेरे जिंदगी में सबसे बड़े सारे हैं, तकरीबन इससे पहले कोई नहीं हुआ, तो ये सबसे बड़ा सारे है। कम से कम तकरीबन 180 के ऊपर जो है ना बंदे उसमें फौतगी हुई है।
The National Disaster Management Authority said most casualties occurred in the province's 36 districts, including Buner. Earlier tallies have reported 320 deaths, but the number quickly climbed as rescue operations continued. Residents recounted how entire families were swept away.
जब तो सुबह में ड्यूटी के लिए जा रहा था तो रास्ते में जब देखा तो बहुत ज्यादा पानी आ रही थी, बहुत ज्यादा ऊंची तरफ से आ रही थी। मैंने देखा तो मैं रास्ते से वापस आके चीखे मार रहे थे कि जान बचाओ जान बचाओ। काफी लोग इस पे बच गए हैं, कुछ लोग पहाड़ों पर चढ़ गए, कुछ साइड पे हो गए। और ये जिस जगह पे हम खड़े हैं ये 3-4 घराने थे, ये बिल्कुल पानी में बह गए, इसका कोई हैसियत बाकी नहीं रहा।
Authorities have warned of further downpours in the northwest and advised people to stay away from high-risk areas. Heavy monsoon rains regularly batter Pakistan between July and September, but overcrowding and poor drainage systems in rural and mountainous communities make the destructions particularly severe. This is Verhil Parba, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Up next, Bolivia's presidential election is headed to a runoff with Senator Rodrigo Paz Pereira and former President George Quiroga advancing, ending nearly 2 decades of ruling party dominance. In India, seafood exporters are feeling the bite of new U.S. tariffs. A 50% duty is hitting a multi-billion-dollar trade. Industry leaders warn it could drive buyers away and leave shipments stranded. More news when Newsline World returns.
Sa kabila ng mga mas modernong kaalaman at teknolohiya, nananatiling matindi ang banta ng HIV sa Pilipinas. Pero gaano nga ba kalala ang sitwasyon? Ang HIV o Human Immunodeficiency Virus ay isang sakit na sumisira sa immune system ng katawan. Ngunit tandaan, hindi ito nakukuha sa simpleng pakikisalamuha. Hindi mo agad mararamdaman, pero unti-unti nitong pinapahina ang katawan. At kapag hindi naagapan, humahantong ito sa AIDS, ang huling yugto na impeksyon, kung saan halos wala ng panlaban ng katawan laban sa sakit. Patuloy na dumadami ang kaso ng sakit na ito sa Pilipinas. Isang nakababahalang pagtaas. Umabot na sa 500% ang itinaas ng HIV cases sa mga kabataang edad 15 hanggang 25. Ayon mismo sa Department of Health, 56 na bagong kaso ang naitatala kada araw sa bansa mula Enero hanggang Marso 2025. At ang pinakamatinding apektado, ang kalalakihan at kabataang Pilipino. Dahil dito, ang Pilipinas na ngayon ang may pinakamataas na bilang ng bagong kaso ng HIV sa buong Western Pacific region. Isang indikasyon ng lumulubhang sitwasyon. Kaya nananawagan ng Department of Health gawing opisyal at urgent ang laban sa HIV sa pamamagitan ng isang Public Health Emergency Declaration. Kalalakihan ng pangunahing apektado, 95% ng bagong kaso ay lalaki, mahigit 1/4 ay kabataang nasa edad 15 hanggang 24. Habang wala pang deklarasyon, patuloy ang DOH sa mga sumusunod na hakbang: HIV testing, libreng gamot, self-test kits, at pakikipagtulungan sa DepEd para sa edukasyon sa mga paaralan. Isinulong rin ng DOH ang online patient appointment system para sa HIV patients. Layunin nitong gawing mas madali at mas personal ang pag-access sa libreng gamutan at konsultasyon. Ayon sa schedule ng pasyente, ang HIV ay hindi tulad ng flu. Hindi ito basta naipapasa sa hangin. Ito ay naipapasa sa pamamagitan ng personal na desisyon. Kailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin ang ugali, disiplina at personal na responsibilidad. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
When you are innocent, you're not afraid. Why? The Word of God says, there is no fear in love. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. But when you're innocent, all that you have is the love and compassion. People can do anything they want to do to you, but you remain unmoved. You remain to be penetrating. You remain, even in your silence, it goes deep into the heart to tell you about the silence of innocence, and the innocence of silence will penetrate deep into your heart. And when you do something like that against anyone who is innocent, your conscience will bother you until you die. When you do something to a good man, to an innocent man, and you know that he is good, and you know that his intention for humanity is only good, your conscience will not let you sleep. Your conscience will bother you. Your conscience will be your enemy while you live.
Maging alerto at handa tuwing may bagyo. Upang manatiling ligtas, narito ang ilang mahahalagang paalala. Manatili sa loob ng bahay. Iwasan ang paglabas, lalo na kung malakas ang ulan at hangin. Mag-imbak ng pagkain at malinis na tubig. Maghanda ng emergency kit. Manatiling updated sa lagay ng panahon. Maghanda ng mga flashlight at extra baterya. Panatilihing fully charged ang iyong cellphone. I-secure ang mahahalagang dokumento sa waterproof na lalagyan. Patayin ang kuryente, gas at tubig kung may banta ng pagbaha. Alamin ang iyong local emergency hotlines. Putulin o tapyasan ang mga sanga ng puno na maaaring mabuwal sa malakas na ulan at hangin. Lumikas agad kung inabisuhan ng mga otoridad. Maging ligtas at maging handa sa panahon ng kalamidad. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Hoy, magnanakaw! Tingnan! Pulis ka! Hala, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Hoy, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Ano kayang gagawin ko? Ipamimigay ko yung konti para tumigil sila sa pag-iingay.
Pare, magnanakaw, namimigay ng pera.
Eto ang sayo.
Wow! Ang bait ng magnanakaw!
Eto naman sayo.
Kuya, yung
Eto
share ko! Sana
Huwag ka nang maingay. Eto pa. Tama na yan. Nakikipalato lang kayo eh. Huwag nang maingay. Diba? Konti lang pinamigay ko, mabait na ako. Tahimik na sila, easy. Ngayon, pwede ko na tong suluhin.
Masaya ang mga tao, pero tama po ba ito? Di po ba ang nakikinabang sa magnanakaw ay kasabwat ng magnanakaw?
Ikaw, kinukonsenti mo ba ang legal na korupsyon?
We're back in New York. Tragedy struck at a Brooklyn nightlife spot. At least 3 men are dead and more than a dozen others hurt after a mass shooting inside a popular hookah bar and restaurant early Sunday morning. Police swarmed the Taste of the City lounge in Crown Heights where the shooting broke out just before 3:30 a.m. local time. Local hospitals say 8 men and 3 women are being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. New York Police Department Commissioner Jessica Tisch says multiple shooters were involved. Investigators recovered at least 36 shell casings and 1 firearm, though it's unclear if it was used in the attack. So far, no arrests. Police are now combing through security footage and witness accounts as the investigation continues. It's a tough catch for India's seafood exporters. America's new 50% tariff is shaking up a multi-billion-dollar trade. Industry leaders say the hike makes it harder to compete, and some buyers in the U.S. are already putting shipments on hold. Sha Corbo has the story.
The United States' decision to impose 50% tariffs on Indian seafood has dealt a severe blow to the industry, according to Pawan Kumar, the national president of the Seafood Exporters Association of India. Speaking in Visakhapatnam over the weekend, Kumar stressed the impact of the higher duties on Indian exporters.
Tariff has definitely impacted our business. Not only my business as Print Exports, but also other companies which export to mainly US market. If you see the numbers, we sell about $3 billion worth of seafood to US market across the country. The total Indian exports are about $7.5 billion, and US itself is about close to $3 billion. So US is definitely a major market, and these tariffs have definitely hit our industry in a big way.
He explained that the tariff increase has left Indian exporters at a disadvantage compared to competitors.
By end of July, the tariffs were increased to 25% from 10%, which itself was a major hit. Then again, because of the India buying the Russian oil and other things, the tariff was increased by another 25%. Today, we sit on a tariff of about 50%, which is way too high. And all the importers from US have stalled imports, and they have asked us not to make any shipments. So that definitely is making a major impact on our seafood industry.
Kumar noted that India's seafood exports are recognized for their quality, but a tariff gap gives competitors like Ecuador and Indonesia a clear edge. Despite the strain, Kumar said exporters back the government's stance in ongoing trade disputes. He highlighted the challenge of balancing export markets while protecting farmers who supply raw materials. Looking ahead, Kumar pointed to Russia as a potential market for Indian seafood.
Russia is one important market where we can sell our seafood. It is emerging market. We are sure we will be able to move more and more volume to that.
The tariffs, announced by U.S. President Donald Trump as a punitive measure against India's purchase of Russian oil, will come into effect on the 27th of August. Trade negotiations between two countries are set to resume on August 25 after 5 failed rounds. Reporting for Newsline World, Cha Corbo, SMNI News.
For the first time, Madagascar is at the helm of Southern Africa's biggest regional bloc. President Andry Rajoelina officially took over the rotating chairmanship of the Southern African Development Community, or SADC, as he opened the group's 45th summit in Antananarivo. Rajoelina called for stronger regional cooperation to drive industrialization, transform agriculture, and advance the energy transition, stressing that intra-African trade remains too low at just 18%. The Malagasy leader, who will chair SADC for the next 2 years, also praised outgoing chair President Emerson Mnangagwa, or Zimbabwe, for his leadership in crisis management and regional solidarity. The summit, hosted by Madagascar for the first time, centered on industrialization, agriculture, and energy, while also addressing regional security, trade, and sustainable tourism. In Israel, massive protests erupted as many took to the streets demanding the government reach a ceasefire deal with Hamas. Demonstrators say they want the return of hostages and an end to the ongoing military offensive in Gaza. Daniela Paulite for the details.
Crowds filled the streets across Israel, staging nationwide rallies and strikes against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to expand the war in Gaza. Highways were blocked, traffic paralyzed, and city centers came to a standstill as demonstrators beat drums, waved placards, and chanted calls for peace. A group representing hostages' families led the push, saying the government's strategy threatens the lives of captives still held by Hamas. In Jerusalem, protesters shut down a main road.
The government plans to expand the war, which will kill the hostages, which will lead to many innocent deaths in Gaza, and we want to stop it before it's too late.
We want the world to hear that there are other opinions in Israel. Not everyone is for the war. The majority, which is silent, is against the war, against the destruction of Gaza, and we hope for peace.
The Israel-Hamas conflict, now stretching into its second year, shows little sign of slowing. Many protesters say the war has lost its purpose.
We don't think that there's any purpose to the war anymore, and we need to end it for the sake of the Israelis and the sake of the Palestinians as well. We are worried about our people, and we are worried about the people of Gaza, and we want to bring peace and calm to the area.
Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
Coming up, Bolivia's presidential election is headed to a runoff, with Senator Rodrigo Paz Pereira and former President George Quiroga advancing, ending nearly 2 decades of ruling party dominance. And in the sports, in Chengdu, China, the 2025 World Games have come to a close. 10 days of competition ended with a spectacular closing ceremony celebrating record-breaking performances, a flag handover, and cultural showcases of local flair. Newsline World will be back after the break. In Bolivia, the vote count is underway after millions cast their ballots in a closely watched presidential election, one that could mark the end of the ruling party's two-decade grip on power. Sara Santos for the news.
Ballot boxes sealed and counting begins. In La Paz, election workers are sorting and tallying votes after polls closed Sunday evening in Bolivia's general election. Officials say voting was largely calm, though there were some incidents, including an attempted assault on left-wing candidate Andrónico Rodriguez. No injuries were reported. Preliminary results now show the race heading to a runoff. Senator Rodrigo Paz Pereira is in the lead with more than 32%, followed by former President Jorge Tuto Quiroga with nearly 27%. They will face each other in the decisive second round on the 19th of October. Among the other contenders, businessman Samuel Doria Medina, Senate President Andrónico Rodriguez, Cochabamba Mayor Manfred Reyes Villa, MAS candidate Eduardo del Castillo, Santa Cruz Mayor Johnny Fernandez, and Pavel Aracena. It's the first election in nearly 20 years without incumbent Luis Arce or his predecessor Evo Morales on the ballot. Morales, however, made headlines, casting a null vote while accusing the government of fraud.
El plan del gobierno es hacer ganar al Eduardo del Castillo con fraude.
President Arce, voting earlier in La Paz, called on Bolivians to show unity and respect the results.
Este es un día donde los bolivianos tenemos que mostrar una vez más unidad y tenemos que demostrar una vez más al mundo entero que somos un pueblo que apostó por la democracia y vamos a resolver nuestras diferencias en democracia.
Turnout abroad was mixed, with polling centers in Europe reporting between 45 and 80% participation. Voting across Latin America wrapped up later in the day. So far, Rodrigo Paz and Jorge Quiroga are moving on to the runoff. The two will face off on the 19th of October in what could redefine Bolivia's political future. Reporting, Sarah Santos, SMNI News.
In Indonesia, the nation marked its 80th Independence Day with a grand military parade and colorful air show in Jakarta. President Prabowo Subianto led his first August 17th celebration since taking office last year. Joy Tabanao for the details.
The grounds of Indonesia's State Palace turned festive as thousands gathered to witness the milestone celebration. Officials, veterans, foreign guests, and over 8,000 citizens filled the stands, their slots gone within hours of opening. Military bands marched in unison. Soldiers on horseback paraded with a red and white flag, while jets roared overhead, painting the sky with streaks of colorful smoke. The commemorations carried echoes of Indonesian history, recalling August 17, 1945, when national leaders declared independence after centuries of Dutch colonial rule. Though conflict with the Netherlands raged until 1949, that moment cemented the country's path to sovereignty. This year's anniversary also marks a milestone for President Subianto, presiding over his first Independence Day as head of state. 80 years on, Indonesia's independence was not just remembered with solemn reflection, but also with the celebration of how far the nation has come. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
Days of competition, culture, and color, Chengdu bids farewell to the 2025 World Games with a spectacular send-off. This story from Carlo de la Peña.
The curtain has come down on 2025 World Games in Chengdu, China, after 10 days of competition and celebration. A dazzling closing ceremony lit up the International Friendship Pavilion at Chengdu's Horticultural Exposition Park. For 1 hour, the stage came alive with athletes' parades, flag handovers, and cultural performances that mixed international flair with Chinese tradition and Sichuan's local flavor. This year's games broke records, drawing nearly 6,700 athletes and team officials from 116 countries and regions. China sent 321 athletes, competing in 152 events across 28 sports. They walked away with their best ever performance: 36 golds, 17 silvers, and 11 bronze medals. Launched in 1981 and held every 4 years, the World Games showcase sports not featured in the Olympics. Chengdu's edition wrapped up on Sunday after running from August 7th to 17th. And now, the torch passes on, keeping the World Games spirit alive until the next host city takes the stage. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Carlo de la Peña, bringing you the latest sports news.
They can sprint, score goals, and even throw a punch. Robots are stepping out of the factory floor and into the sports arena. In Beijing, the world's first humanoid robot games have just wrapped up, and it's giving us a glimpse of what the Olympics of the future might look like. This story from Jade Calabroso.
The world's first humanoid robot games in the Chinese capital have just wrapped up, and it's being hailed as a major leap forward in artificial intelligence and robotics. The 4-day event drew nearly 300 teams from 16 countries with more than 500 humanoid robots competing across 26 disciplines, from athletics and football to martial arts, gymnastics, and even medical and hospitality challenges. Footage from the final day shows robots sprinting down the track, battling it out in the boxing ring, and taking on the pitch in fully autonomous 5A-side football. China's Changdong robot clinched gold with a time of 8.50 seconds. Hangzhou-based Unit 3 Robotics also dominated several races, winning 4 golds in middle and long-distance events. Meanwhile, Tsinghua University's Hu Shen team edged out Germany with a 1-0 victory to claim the football championship. At the closing ceremony, organizers unveiled the World Humanoid Robot Sports Federation, marking the games as more than just a competition, but a movement for the future of intelligent machines. And the games aren't slowing down anytime soon. The second edition is already set for August next year, right back in Beijing. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jade Calaproso, SMNA News.
From planning adventures for her grandchildren to finally receiving one in return, an 87-year-old or year-old grandmother's story is capturing hearts online. After taking each of her 16 grandkids on memorable trips for more than 2 decades, she was recently surprised with a visit to her dream destination. Here's Justine Nazario for the story.
Here's a story that's sure to warm your heart. For nearly 25 years, one grandmother made it to her mission to take each of her 16 grandchildren on a special one-on-one vacation. Now, those same grandkids have returned the love in the sweetest way with a surprise trip of her own. This year, the roles reversed. 8 of her now adult grandchildren surprised her with a dream trip to Hawaii, the destination that she had always hoped to visit. In a heartwarming moment captured on TikTok, a Hawaiian Airlines flight attendant made an announcement mid-flight, calling Noreen a true VIP and delivering a shout-out from her grateful grandkids. The family had secretly arranged the gesture to make sure their grandmother felt celebrated from the moment the trip began. Grandma Noreen says she already feels blessed, but this gift from her grandkids is proof that love given over a lifetime always comes back full circle. This is Justine Nazario, assistant correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
For our latest showbiz updates, Hollywood mourns a legend. Terrence Stamp has died at 87, leaving a 6-decade career of unforgettable roles from Billy Budd to Superman. Meanwhile, Dame Helen Mirren is sparking debate, saying James Bond should stay male while urging Hollywood to highlight real-life female spies. Here's Andrea Santos for our showbiz news.
Hollywood is mourning the loss of a true screen icon. Terrence Stamp, the British actor whose career spanned more than 6 decades, has passed away at the age of 87. Stamp first captivated audiences in 1962 with Billy Budd, earning Oscar and BAFTA nominations. He quickly became a leading man of British cinema, appearing in classics like Far From the Madding Crowd and The Collector. He achieved worldwide fame as the unforgettable villain, General Zod, in Superman and Superman 2, immortalizing the line, "Kneel before Zod." Known for his range, he later won praise in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and starred in films such as The Limey, Wall Street, Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, and The Adjustment Bureau. Born in London in 1938, Stamp went from humble beginnings to international acclaim. Beyond the screen, he authored memoirs, a novel, and even a cookbook, showing the depth of his creativity. As of now, Terrence Stamp's cause of death has not been publicly disclosed by his family. However, many fans and co-stars have expressed their condolences for the late actor. His family says Terrence Stamp leaves behind an extraordinary body of work that will continue to inspire for years to come. In a candid interview with Saga magazine, Dame Helen Mirren admitted she was never a fan of James Bond, especially the way women were portrayed in the films. But Mirren stopped short of endorsing a female 007, arguing that Bond should remain true to Ian Fleming's original character. Instead, she urged Hollywood to spotlight the stories of real-life female spies. Her remarks quickly reignited debate over the future of the world's most famous spy. Former Bond actor Pierce Brosnan weighed in, saying he has a certain agreement with Mirren's point of view, acknowledging the franchise's sexist past while noting Bond still belongs to the fictional world created by Fleming. At 80, Mirren is still busy on screen, starring in The Thursday Murder Club alongside none other than Brosnan himself. And while the Bond franchise continues to evolve, one thing's certain, Dame Helen's hot take has added new fuel to an old debate. This is Andrea Santos, your citizen correspondent, bringing you the latest show buzz.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the sun. We cannot repay the Creator. All He needs from us is our gratefulness. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Angel Pastor. Thank you for watching.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth.